Another live. Oh, okay. This is going to be a really big video. Well, actually, it shouldn't be too long because I've really condensed it. But it's impactful. And at this time, I know I've been talking a lot about reptilians, but I feel like we need to be unpacking the trauma that has been created on planet Earth in order to shift our vibration higher and move into a better space, both individually and collectively. So, yes, today I'm going to be talking about how we have all been traumatized through the generations, how the prison planet system works. And of course, I'm going to be talking about the solutions. How do we escape the matrix? There were so many different titles that I wanted to call this video, and none of them really encapsulated everything that we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to get through a lot, and I'm hoping that by the end of this video, you are going to better understand the system of this matrix, how they manipulate the matrix and program us, and how to break out of said system. All right, cool. Okay. As always, I just want to remind everyone that I'm a remote viewer. I utilize deep states of trance meditation, remote viewing, and telepathy to gain access to the information that I present in my videos. That is how I do what I do. And I always want to remind you that you can do all of that too. All of you can remote view. You're probably out of your freaking body right now and just don't know it. All of you are psychic. All of you are telepathic. That is your natural state of being. All right. So I just wanted to remind you of your own power. You can do this stuff too. Before we deep dive into the prison planet theory, I wanted to just kind of give you a couple of reminders. Today, I actually just finished my Galactic Federation meeting. It happened literally an hour ago or like 40 minutes ago, and it was incredible. We talked about a lot of things, but two of the questions that I was especially curious about, we talked about like billionaires and CEOs leaving the planet and why they would do that. And a bunch of other things, but really, I was interested in the financial system. We clearly see countries all over the world right now at this time in 2024 pulling out of the American dollar, right? So the USD is about to collapse. And then we see this huge push for crypto, right? For the first time in crypto history, Bitcoin has reached its highest amount ever, and it looks like there's no stopping it. But of course, who knows? So my question to the Galactic Federation was, what is the future of the financial industry? And their response was nothing short of surprising, shocking, and somehow it actually resonated. So please check out the most recent Galactic Federation meeting. If you're watching this in the future, you can watch for season 2024, episode 3. Okay. The other question that I was very curious about that I think is on all of American minds right now is the presidential election. I had to ask because I just feel like, honestly, I feel really disheartened at at the current situations that are going on. So I had to ask for some help, and I got a very interesting response. And I believe it was a Syrian from the Council of Nine that gave us the response regarding the presidential election. And yeah, and so that was also a very fascinating question to ask and very interesting information that came through. And same thing, not that I really wanted to agree with it, but it really did resonate and it makes sense kind of for where we're going. So if you want some of those pieces of information, please go check out episode 3, season 2024 of the Galactic Federation meeting. Of course, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, share it with those who you think really need to hear it at this time, especially those who need some extra guidance when healing. We're going to be deep diving into healing today. And subscribe if you haven't already. I know there's about 30% of you who haven't subscribed. I'm looking at you. But really though, subscribe. Okay. And last but not least, I've got an incredible event coming up in April. Just around the corner. It is happening live in person. It is my first ever event like this. It's kind of like a Tony Robbins style intimate, intensive deep dive. All right. We are going to be purging out past lifetimes. We are going to be connecting to your cosmic selves and so much else. It is not me leading you. It is me bringing you into a place of leadership, okay? It's showing you that you are just as powerful, if not more powerful. So if that sounds like something that you need and meeting your soul family, then please check out the Galactic Gathering happening April 20th and 21st. Yes, we have online tickets as well. They're called the remote viewer tickets. So you can absolutely tune in via Zoom. And then that ticket also includes the recording. Or if you really want, show up live and feel the energy of that space. I am so honored to be sharing space with so many incredible people. So spots are limited. If that sounds like something you want to be a part of, please check it out on the website. Okay, so let's get into the prison planet theory. So this, like, quite a few years ago, I was hearing all of these people talk about, planet Earth is a prison planet, and, we're being held hostage here, and they're feeding off of our energy. And right away, I'm like, yes, absolutely, that is happening without a doubt. This is a prison planet. But it's almost like in a lot of cases, like with conspiracies and with, channels or channelers, it's even religions. It's like part of it resonates and part of it doesn't. And that's how I felt about the prison planet theory. Now, essentially, the kind of rhetoric or the theory that goes on out there is that planet Earth is a prison planet and that there is a place that our souls go after we incarnate. So when we die, we go to a place and it is a soul recycling center. Okay, this is basically the theory that's out there. And so some people say that there's a soul recycling center on the moon. Some people say that there's a soul recycling center on different planets within our solar system. And some people make statements that the afterlife, okay, the white light, is actually a soul regeneration system, right? A soul replacement, soul whatever, reincarnation system. And so within this system, maybe they refer to them as like the reptilians or the bad guys or the entities, but they feed off of our reincarnation, right? And so, like I said, I'm like, yes, 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 and then no. There's something about that that does not resonate, but there is something about that that really does resonate. So quite a few years ago, long before I was ever online, ever on YouTube, I had to check into this for myself. What is happening? What is this trap? Because there's definitely something going on. And so when I tuned into this myself, and here's what came through. Now, as always, take it or leave it, right? If it resonates with you, it's for you. If it doesn't resonate with you, then it's not for you. And that's totally okay too. All right? So what I've channeled is that this is a bit of a prison system, and they, specifically being the reptilians, but I do want to make a mention that not all reptilians are bad, just like not all human beings are bad, okay? We have to understand that there is good and bad within every civilization in the entire universe. That's just the nature of our binary system, okay? So, but specifically, the reptilians on planet Earth, not so great. And some of them are great. So once again, we're going to talk about the not so great ones today. So they have created and devised a system where they can essentially feed off of our energy, and specifically they feed off of our fear frequency or fear energy. So part of the reptilian genetic manipulation. So we've got Anunnaki within us, we've got Reptilian, we've got Gray, we've got Pleiadian. We are a hybrid species. We've got a mishmash of many different beings throughout the generations. This is what I've remote viewed, is that they have come down, they have messed with our genetics, and they have evolved us. And sometimes it kind of holds us back. And so we've got this fight, flight, or freeze mechanism in our brain, literally being dubbed the reptilian brain, or the reptilian part of our brain. And when we get into that fight or flight mechanism in our brain, it emits a frequency, right? We've got theta, alpha, we've got all these different states that we can get into in our mind. And when we get into that reptilian state, we emit a frequency of survival, of fear. And this is when they feed off of that fear or survival, that fight or flight frequency. Okay? So yes, they do feed off of us. And yes, there is a reincarnation trap, but it's not some sort of soul recycling center. It's not going into the white light, okay? I have been in and out and through and past and beyond the white light, and the white light truly is a place of unconditional love. You could call it heaven, but it does exist, and it is truly good. It is one of the most peaceful, loving, softest vibrational places that I've been to anyway in the universe. Okay, so yeah, don't fear the white light after death, because I know that that is part of that prison planet theory. So here's how they keep us trapped within this cycle. Now, some people believe that karma only exists on planet Earth, which is not the case. Karma exists everywhere in the entire universe. Karma is a universal law. Karma is simply cause and effect. You take one action over here and you're going to get some sort of effect from that action, and it emits an energy, and then you've got to conclude that energy by matching it on the other end of things, okay? And that's how you neutralize karma. The reptilians know all about universal law. They know all about karma, they know all about cause and effect, and this is how they manipulate and they program planet Earth and humanity. So instead of, because they're not allowed to override our free will, instead of saying, you're going to start a war, they plant all of the seeds in mainstream, in television programming, and what it's called is predictive programming. They plant these seeds subconsciously so that collectively we observe these things and then we create it, okay? They can't force us to do anything, but what they can do is they can manipulate us to a certain extent so that we're doing the things that they want us to do. This is how they've gotten around the law of non-intervention for such a long time, because they understand these laws. And so what's happened is, because they understand the law of karma, this is where the prison planet comes in. They create, okay, the reptilians create a certain frequency of trauma that cannot be replicated in other places in the universe. Therefore, human beings and our souls, okay, it's really not our human, it's our soul, that is forced to reincarnate back on planet Earth to complete the soul trauma that we originally experienced. Okay? That's the prison planet. That's what's holding us back, which in some ways feels very daunting, and in other ways feels very liberating. Oh, they're doing it to us, great. So I can undo that, and we're going to talk about undoing this soul trauma. Okay, now specifically, if we talk about the specific trauma that they create within us that we have to come back around to complete, I call it soul fracture, like fracturing an elbow or a leg or a foot or something, okay? What happens is the trauma that they put us through in a variety of ways, could be war, famine, could be plagues, could be trafficking, which we all know is a huge trauma that a lot of us have been through, all right? But those soul traumas fracture a piece of ourselves, and then we get stuck in that place, in that trauma. Okay, so say for example, you had a past lifetime where you endured a really horrific time, and it was like the bubonic plague or whatever, the Black Plague, and I think there was different things, but whatever. And because of that soul trauma, you've got this past life energy that's trapped there. And because it's trapped specifically on planet Earth, you've got to now reincarnate to complete that trauma. And a big part of the trauma completion from previous plagues, guess what, was 2020. All right, and what happened? So here we have it. Okay, so that's how the reincarnation trap works. This is how the reptilians have been doing it for a very long time. Okay, trapped on Earth. They do feed off of our fear. Okay, I'm just reading my notes. Yeah, okay. So let's talk about healing the soul fractals. Now, I want to mention before we go into the healing aspect of it, starseeds in particular have been targeted for many, many, many years, for many generations. Okay? And how do they know that you're a starseed? Typically, you are connected to the elements. Typically, you are outspoken. Typically, you are a healer. Typically, you are a change maker. Typically, you will not agree with the way that the system has been. You're an outspoken individual that does not agree with the norms. You're screaming starseed, okay? And once again, to get away from even just this word starseed, right? A galactic volunteer. The reptilians are the most afraid of these galactic volunteers. They know that we are the threat. We have been the threat in previous lifetimes, and we are currently the most extreme threat to their existence right now. Is our ability to question the narrative, to wake the fuck up, and to wake everyone else up around us. So, we have been the most traumatized, period. We have been the most targeted, we have been the most attacked, we have been the most traumatized. Therefore, coming into this lifetime, we have a heavy burden to bear. We have a lot that we're hanging on to, and it's time to let that go. Okay? Now, there is a section of the humans who are on planet Earth, new Earth humans, who have never been here before, and they do not carry the same burdens, and they do not carry the same traumas. I want to say that of this community, I don't know, it's even hard to kind of put a percentage on it. Like, I feel like the majority of you have been here for a while and are quite traumatized. I feel like a much smaller percent, maybe 5% or 10% of my community are brand new. Okay? So, because I feel like the new souls are still coming in, you know? All right. So let's talk about soul fractals and healing them. So, like I mentioned, most likely as a starseed, you have soul fractals. Now, I do want to mention something. So, like, a soul fracture is like a piece of your soul kind of gets left in that space and time, and then you go about life and you're piecing, you're breaking off, you're traumatized, you're piecing, you're breaking off. But then there's also another aspect of soul fractals that I've worked with plenty of times before, and I just have to mention it so that we don't get too confused, but we only have a limited number of words to utilize as well, so there are limitations. There is also the concept that as a soul, we cannot be contained by one container, so that there are many different aspects of your soul that are currently incarnated out in the universe. It's like your soul family, right? It's just actually just the same soul, just fractured into many different pieces. And that's a little bit different. Those aren't traumatized pieces of you wandering around the universe. Those are actually full embodied versions of you, just in a different place, in a different space, in a different time, living out that lifetime, most likely as an extraterrestrial. So just kind of keeping that in mind, that there are soul fractures that are trauma-based, and then there are soul fragments that are just aspects of you. And that's the reason why I don't believe in twin flames, is because we don't just have one other half of ourselves. We are quantum, multidimensional beings, and there are many aspects of ourselves wandering around in parallel succession. Okay? Just planting some light seeds here. Okay, so, okay, the trauma from past lives will follow you. It'll create irrational fears. Oh, yeah, okay. So if your soul fractures are really bad, then it creates, or it's diagnosed as DID, or dissociative identity disorder, okay? Previously known as multiple personality disorder. So this is an incredibly prominent case of trauma after trauma after trauma, and all of a sudden you don't know who you are anymore, and there's other aspects of self that come in. That's a very extreme version of the trauma that can be created on planet Earth, which once again creates this reincarnation cycle, okay? This trap, this prison. If it's not as bad, if the traumas are not as bad, and you're not, say, diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, then what you're going to be living through is the traumas come out as different identities that we can utilize. And most of us are not even aware of all of the different identities. Like maybe inside you, you have a rebel that just wants to shout from the rooftops. Maybe inside you, you have this like small little girl who just needs to be held. Maybe inside of you, you have someone who's really freaking angry. And every once in a while, if those identities and those aspects of self go unchecked and you're unaware of them, they will come out without permission, without control. And this is where we see people losing their cool or getting super angry or reverting back to that traumatic inner child stage, right? Which is, you know, it's sad, but I think that we all have these trauma aspects that have been hidden deep within ourselves. And what this video is all about is saying, clear that, heal that. There are aspects of you that seriously need to be loved and seen and held, and you need to bring them back into the whole, okay? Okay, so in psychology, there is a term, and I want you guys to write this term down. It's called IFS, Integrated Family Systems. Now, I'm obviously not a psychologist. I'm definitely not trained or practiced or educated in this at all. All I know about IFS is the work that I've done with my therapist, okay? Integrated family systems. And when she's like, oh, you know, like, I specialize in integrated family systems. And I told her, I'm like, I don't have any family problems. Like, maybe you're not the right therapist for me. And she kind of giggled and she's like, oh, IFS is not about family. And I'm like, okay. Then she explains to me that through trauma, we all have different aspects of ourself that are all buried within ourselves. And like they even have names for them. Like we have like the exile, we have the protector, we have the firefighter who's constantly putting out fires. So really, like, she was explaining this and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, and I told her, I said, well, when I was 18, I was doing a bunch of inner child work just because I was drawn to do that work. And I said, is it like this? I talked to my inner child. She was super upset. And I said, what do you need from me? And she said that I just needed to be there. And then eventually she trusted me. And then we integrated. It's like the one time I hugged my inner child and like she got absorbed by me. And I was like, that was kind of weird. And she's like, that's exactly the point of IFS, is to take these parts of us and to bring them back in so that we can show up in every single moment as a whole individual. Who knew? There was a whole freaking theory of thought within psychology that is based on soul fragments, soul fractals, soul fractures, right? Healing those soul fractures. If you feel like you've got hurt parts of you that are unhealed, please explore integrated family systems. And not everyone specializes in that, but wow, it is probably the number one most impactful, profound, and closest to my understanding of how the soul gets traumatized and how we react and respond to that trauma, but in an actual psychological practice. And I don't know if it's even psychology. It might just be therapy. It might just be a therapist, right? Type thing, because my therapist isn't a psychologist. She's a therapist. So it's profound. It's the amount of breakthroughs that I've made in the past 3 years by just tuning into these parts of me have been, I mean, beyond healing. Okay, so just fangirling over IFS. Okay, so here's the solution here. We need to explore the traumas in order to heal them and bring them back. Whether you're like, I don't have time or money for a therapist, I'm not getting into it, that's okay, right? Some other words that we can use for this, other than integrated family systems, we could use shadow work. We could use inner child healing, right? These are all just aspects of the same thing. What we're doing is we are reviewing the trauma. We're asking ourselves if there is a piece of us that is still connected to that trauma. And then we're asking that part of ourselves, what do you need from me? How can I help you? Because no, I don't think that we need a guru or a leader or an energy worker or a therapist or a psychologist or a doctor to help us in this process. If you need someone to hold space for you, then absolutely go get it. But I know that we can lead ourselves and hold space for ourselves too. Okay? So please go searching for this deep inner work. One other thing that you can do is calling all parts of your human and your earthly soul back, right? And part of this shadow work and this inner child healing is also past life stuff, right? Every time we review a past life that is traumatic, which is a lot of them, that past lifetime holds a piece of our soul, that soul fractal. And if it's coming up in our lives, whether through an oracle card deck or maybe some sort of past life reading that you get or a dream that you have, right? It's an aspect of, hey, this thing needs to be healed. It's coming up in order to be healed. So one of the things that I've done in the past, really decade or so, is calling all of my soul fractals back. So I really just sit in meditation, close my eyes, open my heart space, and say something to the effect of, I call any and all soul fractals back into my earthly body for the highest good of all involved. And I remember the first time I did this, I was, I think, 18 or 19 years old. I was sitting on a bus. I was going to my job and still going to university. Maybe I was going to a class. But anyway, I was on this bus, like a city bus. And I was sitting there and I closed my eyes. It was so early, like 6 a.m. And I said that just intuitively. I'd never done that before. And I just saw all of these, they look like glowing white balls of energy all coming back into my body. And immediately I felt more grounded, more present, more aware. I could smell the smells on the bus. It sounds gross. It wasn't. It was shocking and beautiful. I'm like, what? Like I was more present. I was more in my senses. I was more aware, more grounded than I had been because I'm bringing those parts of me back. So sometimes without even having to go through the heavy labor of doing the work, you can just call it all back in and then allow it to integrate. Okay? It is time for all of us to take our power back, to escape this reincarnation prison planet trap, and to step into who we've always been, which is the most whole version of you. I was going to say wholest, by the way. I had to like rearrange that in my mind. the most unified version of yourself. All right? It's time, and you are ready. As always, thank you so, so much for being here. Be sure to check out that incredible Galactic Federation event that we had today, talking about the presidential election and the future of finance and so much more. Check out the Galactic Gathering if you are ready for an intensive, intimate, in-person event with me and fellow team members. And if you do feel like you want to move ahead and you want to do some deep healing and you don't know where to begin, I've got an incredible course. It's called the Shift Masterclass, and it is truly meant to take you from the 3D into the 5D by exploring the different parts of you, healing them, releasing them, and getting into the highest frequency. All right? Thank you all so, so much. As always, such a pleasure to be here with you. I will see you in the fifth dimension frequency.